special permission from the police department to drive like this, I think. Hi, we're here again today to talk about a car. It's one of my favorite cars of all times. It's a 67 big block Corvette. And it's even a good color, the Marlboro Maroon, black stripe, black interior. It's got it all going for it. Side pipes, knockoff wheels. It's just exactly what everybody would want with a 67 Corvette. So typically we're talking about resto mods. In appearance, we're not talking about a resto mod. We're talking about a pure stock NCRS 67 Corvette. And that is truly what it was when it got here. It's not that anymore. This car is again, the type of thing that we like to build. It looks like what it was supposed to be. But under the hood, the suspension, it's not even close. It's an LS powered engine again, of course. It's 6-speed or 5-speed transmission in this one, sorry. We've upgraded the suspension. It's got coilovers on all 4 corners. It's upgraded control arms for strength and for front end geometry as well. We also took a ton of weight out of the car. After it's all said and done with, iron big block Chevrolet got put on an engine stand and I purchased it. And it has the LS3 aluminum engine in it. We've knocked the weight down to 2,890 pounds, which is a great power to weight ratio when you're talking about the 480 horsepower LS3. We did custom tune the engine, which I'll point all that out to you as we buzz it a little bit. It likes to go to about 6,500 without too much trouble. But we're gonna take a couple of minutes and look at the car just basically as a stock 67 Corvette, and then we'll start opening it up and lifting it up off the ground, and you can start to see all of the things that have been radically changed on it. So we're taking a look at the back side of the car here. And again, the knockoff wheels, side pipes, the Marlboro Maroon. It's just a really cool car. We do have it sitting a little bit lower than it's supposed to be, but it's for a reason, and we'll start to see that as we go through. If you come up into the car a little bit, you can see how stock everything is inside. I mean, if you're paying attention, the only thing you'll see is the shift handle's a little bit longer. I prefer the shift handle a little bit longer, plus it's bolted to the snout on the Tremec TKX transmission. It is 5-speed. The original steering wheel, all the gauges are original and they all work. We really paid a lot of attention to leaving it alone. It does have a late model air conditioning in it, which is incorporated into the dash. It's kind of difficult to see, and it works really well. We had air coming out of there at 52 degrees, which is pretty damn good. So we'll come up to the front of the car, and now when I open the hood, you'll start to get the flavor a little bit better of what we're doing here. We did use a different valve cover. That is made by a company called Low Car, and it involves relocating the coils, which is a royal pain in the ass, but it really looks cool, and it kind of gives it the flavor of the original big block. You can see the aluminum radiator, the dual fans, all that is in effort to make the air conditioning work well and cool the engine properly. You can see where we've kept all of the electronics. We were basically going after an OE feel here. We weren't looking for some kind of super trick custom car. We did use the factory 67 power brake unit and the dual chamber reservoir. And for the most part, I'll show you the brakes. We have Wilwood upgraded calipers, but the rest of it is basically stock Corvette. And this car stops really well, so it's definitely adequate for what we're doing. So we're at the front of the car now, and we're going to take a look underneath it, and I'll talk to you about some of the things that we've done. The C2 Corvette is actually a pretty damn good car, and all it needs is a few tweaks to make it work really well. I know you hear me preach about Morrison chassis, and the Morrison chassis are probably better in the long run, but you can get this a lot easier and a lot quicker than the Morrison chassis. What we did here is we took a car that was about a 10-year-old restoration. It's just starting to show its age a little bit. And then we started upgrading it and updating it. And that's what we've come to here. And the finished product is quite good. It handles amazingly well. It stops great and it goes straight really well. So we'll go through a little bit and talk about what it is that we've done. The Vette brakes from from the beginning aren't bad. So we used the Wiltwood caliper, which it's an OE replacement caliper. It's far better than all the aftermarket shit that's out there right now. We used a little bit better quality vented rotor, but it essentially is still the Vette brake system that it was born with. Where we really started to make a lot of changes is in the control arms and the shocks and springs. So we've used a coilover. This is a dual adjustable coilover. So it gives you a lot of adjustment as far as the feel of the car. Part of what we're going to test when we go for a ride in it is they made an adjustment. I didn't like it. It was a little too choppy, a little too much race car. So we softened it up some. Hopefully we're on the money there. We've put a better sway bar on the front of it. This is what controls the body roll, okay? Not that these have a ton of body roll anyway, but it's a hell of a lot better now than it ever was. The other thing that the control arm changes do, both upper and lower, is particularly the upper, is it gives you a little bit of an advantage to aligning the front end. It gives you the ability to put a lot of positive caster in it, which makes the car drive real positive and real straight. That's kind of important because the other big thing that we did was we changed all of the power steering stuff in the steering box that the Corvette comes with. That stuff isn't very good. Borgenson has come out with a bolt-in box, basically a bolt-in box, and it changes the ratio and it changes the whole feel of the steering of the car. That in conjunction with the additional caster and the shocks and springs that we have changed us into a really, really good handling car. You can see the oil pan from the LS, of course. The transmission, this is a TKX from Tremec, which the TKO 500 and 600 have been around for a million years, and they were kind of everybody's go-to. Well, the TKX is a lot better in the fact that the top of the transmission has been modified so that you don't have tunnel interference when you're trying to achieve the proper pinion angle. The other thing that it does is the TKO and the TKX at 6,000 RPM, you couldn't change gears in that thing. They were shit as far as RPM went for changing gears. This thing so far has changed gears just fine at 6,500. So my hat's off to Tremec. They did a really good job with this tranny, and this should be everybody's go-to right now. Particularly if you've got like a GMA body or something like that, because despite what everybody tells you, to achieve the pinion angle, the proper pinion angle, both in this car and in the Chevelle or GTO, there has to be a ton of modification. And I don't give a damn what anybody else says. It can't be done right without the change. So this is a really good go-to. Staying with the side exhaust on it, I mean, the side pipes are kind of a quintessential part of this Corvette. I hate them myself, but this is what we're going with. They're stifling the engine. This is probably costing us 30 or 40 horsepower for this chambered stuff, but it sounds perfect. The GM engine that we used is their 480 horsepower, and what they did was they put a little more aggressive camshaft in it, and they wanted it to sound more like an old muscle car, and they did a perfect job. The thing sounds exactly like a big block Corvette should. And that was another reason to leave the chambered exhaust despite the lack of performance. And we had to do some pretty significant tuning on the car to make it run perfectly with the chambered exhaust and the engine compartment, the air box and all that we used. But the chambered exhaust is really, in my opinion, a negative thing. But when it's on the ground, it looks and sounds exactly right. And that's what the owner wanted. And he writes the check, so that's all that really matters. So if you come to the back of the car, most of the stuff that's on all the suspension stuff comes from Van Steel. Van Steel's a company in Clearwater, father and son company. Been around for 100 years. I've been buying shit from them for 20 years or more. Real good people to deal with. They're pretty much our go-to for Corvette control arm restorations and stuff like that. To do a restoration on these rear control arms for these Corvettes, it requires some special tools. I have most of them, but I prefer to just send them to them and let them restore them. What these are is a little bit of a step up. This is a fabricated rear control arm, and it gives more room for tire. In the future, if Pat decides he wants more tire on the car, there's room to maximize the room that we have, which is not a lot. But it's made stronger than the original. This one we used an upgraded hub. So the hub is billet instead of just a forged steel part. It's a really good, strong piece. Unfortunately, the billet yokes were not available because God only knows what's going on in this screwed up world that we can't get parts. But anyway, it was a big block rear end. We took it apart and put bearings in it, made sure everything was good. The U-joints are a decent size U-joint. The half shaft is a decent size half shaft. And we got this little beanie ass tire, so we're all good for this. We're not too worried about it. You can see the anti-roll bar here. It's a little bit bigger than the factory roll bar that it came with. These plates that they make at Van Steel reinforce this mounting piece. There's a big rubber cushion in here. And what this does is it squeezes the hell out of the rubber cushion, and it stops a lot of the movement. Not all of the movement, which is good, but a lot of the movement here. The lower arms here are adjustable, so you can set the camber without any problem. These are they should do this on all of the cars. Just about everything we work on, unless it's nut and bolt perfect, we put stuff like this on so that you can adjust it much easier. Most of the cars today are lower than they're supposed to be too. The drive shaft, this is an aftermarket drive shaft. It's a little different length than what we're supposed to use. We stayed with steel. There's not a lot of room here. The yokes and such came from PST. PST makes all of our drive shafts. Other than that, the bottom of the car is fairly original. You can see we've taken out the spare tire tub, which is all part of what we were doing to make the car light. This is the fuel pump. Normally we do an internal fuel pump. These tanks are a little bit difficult, and there's a tendency to get the fuel running away from the pump, even with this, but the pump inside without putting baffles and making a custom tank. This is a real good alternative for an aggressively driven street car. If it went to the racetrack, that's a different story. The owner of this car, I doubt will take this to the racetrack. I'd have to beg him to let me, but he has real race cars, real serious race cars, and this is just a toy for him. He has a couple Ferrari Challenge cars and has one of the 2005 Ford GTs that Ford built to go to Le Mans. So this guy's got some real serious race cars. This is just fun for him. There's a reason that everybody wants the C2 Corvettes, because they're just freaking cool. I mean, the C3 is fine. The C1, like I mentioned before, without doing radical modifications, it's a shit box. But the C2 is a pretty damn cool car in just stock form. And then when you start playing with it and making some changes, they're really a neat piece. Like I said to you before, this car is 2,990 pounds. That's pretty damn light. You know, everybody says today, oh, it's only 480 horsepower. Yeah, it's only 480 horsepower, but it's half the weight of everything else. This car doesn't have much gear either, which we left it like that on purpose. If you put too much gear in this, it has an issue with the first gear being pretty damn short. Say this LS3 with a 480 horsepower and a package we put together, it's way faster than any stock 427 Corvette I've ever driven. I mentioned Christian adjusted the shocks. I really like it. It softened it up quite a bit. We had a little bit of wheel control issue in the back. I believe he made an adjustment there to stop the wheel hop. It was just spinning pretty good in first gear. And it's just about perfect in the front. It's nice and smooth. Again, the guy that owns this car, he's got real race cars. He doesn't have to drive this thing around and pretend. So making it comfortable is the main thing to do. Like I mentioned, the clutch and the transmission, American Powertrain, I think they make their own clutch, but the whole package is from them. And they've really done a pretty good job for us. With this new TKX transmission, for an out-of-the-box transmission, this thing's really good. They should just stop making the other shit.
Performance and restoration is what we do.